Global housing could be solved by scaffolding. Scaffolding. Yes, that's the most basic form of global housing anyways. Let's get into it. Welcome to the news. Stay till the end to find out how we're going to try to make use of what we just said in the beginning. Yeah. So in essence, what we're trying to focus on is how we're a little bit weirded out by how everything is made more complicated and people in the world are left behind sometimes. And there's things like the housing market and the housing industry which can be simplified through scaffolding, making scaffolding structures. Kids can make treehouse structures with scaffolding. Vertical farms can be made with scaffolding. Quick housing can be made with scaffolding. And also there's things like painter's plastic, for example, that can be covered over scaffolding and make housing very quickly, very fast. These things can be made, these structures, just like in a day, just like going to the beach and making a tent. You can make scaffolding to develop a house, just like that. And it can actually shelter people for quite a while in quite a solid and sturdy fashion. So this combined with vertical farming, scaffolding combined with vertical farming, the mindset for vertical farming, connecting the essence and the idea of growing and growth through vertical farming and hacking the essence of growth through vertical farming and leveraging solar power at the same time to be able to influence and improve housing globally, worldwide in essence. Right now, I have an interest in selling real estate more or less, but the essence of real estate is high prices. So in the most basic sense, in the most basic needs sense of what people need to survive, all across the world, the whole entire world, they first of all need safety, but realistically, in terms of a house, in terms of a shelter, in terms of a place to just exist, a scaffolding would do the trick. Basically, in a basic sense, to be able to give housing to every single person in the world, some scaffolding, some basic scaffolding, which crossed over and cross hatches a little bit of metal to be able to connect it with a bolt and a wrench, more or less, can make basic structures that can be covered with painter's plastic, which means plastic that is functional and non-permeable and thick enough to be able to withstand certain conditions and be able to have that, especially in certain regions where it's conducive weather-wise, obviously, to where this is the basics that's possible. But this can be a basic function of a shelter scenario. Kids can make tree houses in a hurry. Kids can make dog houses in a hurry. Kids can make, and people can make things that can just solve a significant influence in terms of things that are missing in life, where people need to buy $400,000 and $700,000 houses in the sense of being able to just get a shelter. And I just mean it in the most basic sense, obviously, but not to belittle anyone, but in the sense that an actual scaffolding can be made to structure in a certain way that can structure anything. Basically, you can structure something small, you can structure something big, but it all can be made out of scaffolding. Clay can be made out of scaffolding in a small version of it, more or less, like scaffolding. But it's just also a depiction of just building things little bits at a time. So like I said, building clay out of scaffolding. You can build artifacts in clay with different scaffolding pieces, with toothpick scaffolding, for example. You can build little bits of and structures. This is the purpose of the mention. And so you can build tree houses, you can build vertical farming. Vertical farming is something that should be everywhere in the world, because in essence, why not? Why would vertical farming not be everywhere in the world? To have everybody be able to optimize certain spaces that they do have allotted to themselves to be able to try to functionally use the power of the sun to harness that to be able to grow food. So every single person in the world has the ability to grow food. That's just kind of a big gap in the marketplace right there. That's very much a necessity, it seems. So combining these two things, scaffolding for housing, so everybody can make houses based on just having these minimal ingredients, and then holding that up. That could also be a houseboat. You could build scaffolding in the water and make a houseboat, just like that, more or less. Bathrooms and plumbing are a thing, obviously. That's a different scenario, that's a different thing, but that also is absorbed into the earth if it is done in a certain fashion, like it is done that way in certain countries, for example. So, but just for example, if we are able to leverage some of these tools, we can just get more basic about everything in life. If we could basicify everything, then everything could become more abundant for everybody else. For example, 8 billion people on the planet right now, and we're just not doing enough for everybody else, more or less. So global farming, global vertical farming, and at the same time scaffolding to be able to build tree houses, fun houses, boats, claymation, different items that are based out of scaffolding. And scaffolding is just the structure that holds things in place when they're making a house anyways. Basically, that's what they use, is to build a building. They use scaffolding. That's what it's there for to begin with. So the essence of just having the scaffolding is a significant tool. That's the bottom line. That purpose could be a structure to build almost anything, to be able to structure a frame framework to be able to build anything, and that mentality and a mindset to be able to have anything accessible when you've got a basic structure of a scaffolding at the basic structure of like life, to be able to not have to make $10,000,000 payments on houses all the time could allow somebody to be able to open up their world if they chose to do that for like a while, for example, and they had other resources around them to be able to figure out how to make life functional. But too much in life is focused around and revolves around posh mentalities and posh culture, established routines and processes and items that are just like fads to be able to uphold and keep up with the Joneses for buying and being immersed in expenses on a consistent basis, because everybody feels the obligation to spend every single dollar that they've got, because that's what society has obligated them to do in terms of the highest expenses available are the highest obligations to be able to facilitate highest expenses that are consistently available because they are available, and so that therefore they should be explored upon and paid for because they're available. Although, when you look at scaffolding on the other side of the spectrum, it could be the way that every human in the world lived, and that modest mindset would level out the wealth gap so that everybody in the world was able to have everything, more or less, in today's day and age. Although Elon Musk in the future says that universal high income is something that could be on the horizon if enough humanoid robots are able to come about and be able to just like help us distribute our energy into humanoid robots, and that's cool as well. I'm super game for that at the same time. But the nature of scaffolding, to be able to build a house anywhere in a short time and not build a proper house but build a scaffolding house and use painter's plastic to make a tree house and a tree fort, and an interesting tree fort that could look like anything. Also, you could make it look like a Ninja Turtle, for example, and that is cool because it could be a Ninja Turtle and a house at the same time, and then you could break it down and you could build it again because it's just scaffolding, and it's something that in essence is not explored enough or not talked about enough because it's in essence something interesting and important. You could build a car with scaffolding. It is the framework of a frame of a car, for example. But then again, that combined with vertical farming, because vertical farming is a necessity also, because global food and global scaffolding basically could be able to just give everybody in the world the most basic things that everybody in the world would need to be able to feed themselves and have their own house without actually paying anything, because there's enough abundant energy in the world, in the sky, to be able to power solar panels, to be able to power a vertical farm, and at the same time to be able to have little free houses that are based upon scaffolding, because everybody could build a house based upon scaffolding and they could customize it like their own little tree house, basically. Like if everybody was to make a paper mache classroom project, for example, like they do in 5th grade, they make paper mache with like chicken wire and such, and then cover the outside with like glue and newspapers, for example. Everybody can do that with their own house, because why not? And you can do that with chicken wire at the same time. It's just not talked about because everybody wants to pay for a stucco house with the whole full insulation and everything decked out, which costs hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because a certain process and procedure is agreed upon that's the cost of that structure. Not dogging on it, because I do want to sell real estate so we can raise money for our company. But we just want to make the world a better place for every single person in the world. So vertical farming and scaffolding, especially to make cool little claymations also, and to make art. To be able to, scaffolding is like, it's the way, it's the bones, it's the structure. To build a set for a movie set. To build more or less anything. So let's build vertical farms for every single human in the world. That's all for now. Woo, 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 woo. Thanks again, Ding Tech. Piece by piece. Ding Tech, change for games. Ding Tech, change for game studios. Bye, peace, bye.